Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Adam Davis, and welcome to episode 97 of the 11FS FinTech Insider Breakfast Show. As you know, in this show, we bring you the best and the brightest from around FinTech and the banking landscape every single weekday straight to your homes at 8:30 BST, apart from on Wednesdays when Sam Mull goes live at 3:30 BST or 10:30 ET, just to confuse you all, for our US friends. Both shows, as we know, go live here on LinkedIn. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Georgie Frost, a freelance broadcaster and journalist in finance and sport. How are you doing, Georgie?
I'm very well, thank you. A very good morning, everybody. Lucky 97, it would seem. No, I'm really looking forward to this. Thank you for inviting me.
It's quite the number. Lucky 97. And where are you? Where are you dialing in from? Because you've got a bit of a story.
So the clue is in the flag in the corner. I've been told to put that up, by the way. I actually came out to Spain. I'm in Spain. I'm in Cartagena, which is in the southeast. And I came out here for a 10-day holiday. My partner's Spanish, and I came out to spend some time with him and his family. And then the government decided to rather last minute change their mind about what they think of Spain and travel to Spain. And they decided that actually they're not that comfortable with Brits traveling to Spain, and they want to quarantine us when we get back. So we thought, well, to be honest, I kind of saw this coming. I would be a very poor consumer and finance journalist if I wasn't slightly prepared for this. So I had checked my travel insurance. I had actually changed the flights beforehand. So What was a 10-day holiday is now a 6-week, and I have all of my broadcasting equipment here, all of my laptop, etc., etc. So I've basically been doing all of my work, my TV, radio, written work. You guys now from here. It's been marvelous, I have to say.
I mean,
get this opportunity, right?
Well, it reminds me of that. There was that advert from, I think it was either Barbados or the Bahamas or something like that, and they advocated that you could go there and spend a year there and work, but like work out of a hotel. It kind of reminds me of that setup. If you can make it work, then sounds very cool. Look, we're going to delve into a few things today, but I suppose just off the bat, a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background, how your career started, and I guess, where's the specialism in both finance and sport, two things which I'm obviously quite passionate about.
I've discovered recently you're an Arsenal fan. How very interesting. We won't go down there quite yet, but I'd say I'm devastated by the lack of live sport at the moment. And my career started in sports journalism, but I always say first and foremost I was am a mad sports fan. So I'm itching to get back into the stadium and start watching matches again, basically. And no, I started, I won't tell you when, not that long ago, a couple of years. And I started out in the Northeast predominantly as a football reporter covering what is a phenomenal patch. I mean, if you're going to cut your teeth anywhere, you want to cut it in the Northeast. Yeah. And I covered all sorts of things. And I moved to the BBC. I started presenting sports shows. And in and amongst that, so there's a bit of a diverted history as to how I got into finance. I had a bit of a back issue, and basically it was quite a serious one, and I had to stop driving. And as a sports reporter and journalist and commentator, you kind of need your car to get to ground. So I rehabilitated, and then I just moved back home to London, and as simple as saw an advert going, does anyone know anything about radio? I thought, well, yeah, I know about radio. I'll get a proper job. I don't know, PR or marketing, something proper, But in the meantime, I'll do something about radio. Anyway, roll on 3 months later, and I'm presenting a personal finance and consumer show every day for 4 hours on a brand new station. And I thought, oh my God. At the time, I thought, should I take this? And I asked my friends and family, and they were like, Georgie, have you seen the state of your finances? Really, I wouldn't bother. But I did. And I don't know why I did, but I pat myself on the back for having the balls, or I don't know, maybe I just had a mad moment to do it. And then 18 months later, I was named the UK Financial Broadcaster of the Year. And I suppose that the rest is history. And now I'm not at the station. I'm freelance, and I was on ITV yesterday talking about the business of sport, because if you're a sports journalist and you also do finance, you may as well mix the two. I also write and do quite a bit for the Times and Times Money Mentor website. I do the Daily Mail's Money podcast, host events for Premier Sports Network. I mean, I like variety. Let's put it that way.
And business, not that we were planning to talk about the business of sport, but the business of sport in itself is super, super interesting. So maybe we'll get to there just towards the just very quickly. So, I mean, from your position, I guess, as a journalist and somebody in the know, how do you think, I guess, the lockdown has had an effect on people's attitudes to money in terms of, I guess, where they're or how they're budgeting, where they're spending, attitudes to savings and things of that nature? Because it's something that we're seeing certainly where when we do customer research and when we're sort of trying to build propositions, the concept of, I guess, personal finance management is always, when we're doing B2C, so business to retail, is always, I guess, front and center. So how do you think, I guess, given the lockdown and everything else, people have been impacted?
It's an interesting one to answer, because I've read quite a lot. I even wrote an article about this, and I'm about to, I'm not rubbishing my article here, not at all. But what I will say in caveat is every story is different. Everyone's experience is different. We try and do broad brushstrokes of what we expect or what we think the consumers have or have not been doing. But I mean, it's a very good example, me being out here, being affected by quarantine, for example. I'm doing everything that I would back home. And to me, it's actually a pleasure to be out here. For other people who've been stuck, they can't quarantine because they can't work from home. You know, they've had to come back, etc., wasted lots of money. It's a very different picture. And it's so too with coronavirus and with lockdown. There will be people who've lost their jobs, people who are worried about how they're going to pay the bills, and yet they're reading articles about how much people are saving, how much more people are investing. I mean, it is a different picture for different people. Certainly those people who have money and haven't been too badly affected and can work from home, I imagine they will be able. I think they said something like £720 on average you're saving from not doing things that you would normally do, like commuting, going to restaurants, all those sorts of things. But then other people will be spending more on other things. So, I mean, like I said, it's a very different picture. It's very difficult to know exactly how coronavirus has impacted our behaviors, but I will say there will be some trends that I think will continue throughout. And I think a lot of the trends that we've seen, certainly cash usage is one of them. That's dropped off a huge amount. Actually, it's more in Spain, 90% less. Then a lot of shops are taking it. They think it's not clean, etc., etc. So that wasn't started by coronavirus, though. All it's done is sped up the momentum. Online shopping, another one, sped up the momentum. Where I think things are slightly different is there's a lot of talk, and I was reading back this morning over articles that were written really early on in lockdown, how we like to buy local and support local, how we like to perhaps go a little bit greener investing. Certainly I changed a lot of my investments into greener propositions at the start. But things where you have to actively make an effort, I think will probably not be as significant, if that makes if you understand my meaning with that. Things where people don't realize so much anymore, like contactless payments, those sort of digital payments, I think are going to be much more sped up, I think, going forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think if you read that only, I saw a stat the other day, they said I think about 8% of global commerce is online. That's it, 8%. And I know that sort of spans both big businesses and small businesses. But if you look at, I suppose, the movement to digital, and certainly what we've seen heightened through COVID, the opportunity to take business and take commerce online, and therefore the repercussions on things like payment systems and how you pay is going to be enormous, even more than what we've seen so far. And I suppose sitting in the West, you would probably assume that we're I suppose, I guess the the primary adopters, I guess, or certainly the first adopters of those kind of systems. So to see how the whole world, I guess, will shift as we progress through COVID and through the crisis and out of the crisis. I guess though,
it depends how long it lasts, though, doesn't it? I mean, we have absolutely no idea the impact. If all of a sudden we have a vaccine and everyone can go out and as per normal, then I imagine a lot of the things that we think might change will actually probably bounce back to how they were. But if this keeps going and these ideas and these changes become much more embedded in our sort of consciousness, then I think chances these are much more likely to keep going. The way that we shop, for example, is one of those. But I mean, you said about the number of people that are actually paying online or digital. There's lots of evidence to show that physical bricks and mortar will bring you in more money. We spend more money when we go out to shop. So a lot of these changes while it looks like the death of the high street, death of cash, we hear all of this. I'm just a bit more wary about the reality of that and consumer mentality.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Do you think we're going completely off topic now, but do you think the movement about face masks in shops, do you think that will affect that, or do you think that's as in, do you think I suppose preventative measures to stop COVID, if you like, or to enhance social distancing, I guess, will actually affect consumer spending in stores? It's kind of I've read.
You've asked the right person, because I'm in Spain at the moment, and in 30-40 degrees heat, I have to wear a face mask outside. I even have to wear it because I've just come from the gym. That's how embedded I've become, by the way. I've got a gym membership now for the rest of the month. You even have to wear it when walking around the equipment. But I'll be honest with you, I was a bit dubious about all of this. And I probably, in my heart, still am. I'm quite a civil liberties, don't tell me what to do, quite typically British, I imagine, in that regard. And I was a bit uncomfortable with the idea of being told, go wear masks, without having the absolute proper evidence in my hand, and this is what we're basing it on, etc., etc. A lot of the decisions, I'm not going to criticize the government. I wouldn't want to do that job, but some of the decisions do seem a bit strange and a bit quick, and I like to know the evidence. So will it affect it? If I'm honest, I don't know. I think maybe I'm getting used to it in Spain because you have to wear it. So the accessory of the summer is to wear your mask around your wrist, because nobody wants to wear it in 40 degrees heat. But because I'm now used to every time I get out of the house, a bit like taking my mobile phone, I'll grab a mask from the side and I'll take that with me. If I have to just wear it when I go into shops, I think that's slightly different, because I'm not used to having to go out. I may not go to the shops every day, and if I just pop down to the local store and I don't have my mask with me, well, then I'm not going to go in, am I? Just for those small little purchases that you might get, the little, the corner type shops, or for big purchases, okay, that's fair enough. But then by and large, you'll do those online. So actually, it depends how much we take this. And from what I'm hearing back home, and I don't know, but what I'm hearing is a lot of people just aren't bothering to wear them.
Yeah, I'm looking outside. I can't actually see anybody outside my window, so that was kind of pointless. But I think I went up to London last week. I went into central London. I live just on the outskirts, and I mean, a good 90-95% of people on the trains was wearing them, so that was great. I've been into a couple of shops. To your point, not that many people are taking it super seriously, but it's. I guess it's probably led more by the government in terms of. Their propensity to sort of reinforce the message over and over again will get people then using it more and more. But it's been a
consistent message, and I think that's the issue. It's like people are. Yes, I remember, because before I came here, everybody was wearing it on the tube, and you can understand that you're sitting very closely to people, etc. But I guess people can't understand why is it that you can. You have to go into a shop, but you can't go into a bar or a restaurant. It's the confusion, I think, with people, that it's why this and why not that. So as much as the government can put a message across, if it's an inconsistent message, it's very hard for people to understand. But the point is, will that change consumer behavior? I probably, yes. Although I have to say, I was at the gym and there was a spray to clean everything. And there are certain behaviours that I think I like to see. And I think that this idea that we're now going to be just a little bit cleaner, a little bit more hygienic, I don't think is necessarily a bad thing, to be honest. More cleaning in workplaces, good. We should have had that anyway.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, given, I guess, this shift, if you like, to digital payments and to transacting digitally, just because of what's happened, and probably the slow shift that we were seeing beforehand anyway. And there was a lot of UK regulatory initiatives to sort of look at cash and sort of the use of cash. But a lot of people are going to be sort of interacting with contactless payments and payments from their phone for the first time. And I guess, in your mind, do you think anyone's being, I guess, left behind in that shift, or do you think that it's, or are there vulnerable areas of society that we should be looking at in terms of being able to help even more than maybe we are at the moment?
I'm going to shock everybody now and say I don't use anything like Google Pay or Apple Pay. And I was thinking to myself, why is that? Why? I don't really use cash either. but why do I not? I know all of my friends are like, this is insane. Why would you not do that? You know, it's very inconvenient having a card in the back of your phone, or, you know, in case you drop it or you lose it, or, you know, the minimum spend is a bit of a pain. But I think because I just don't want to rely on my phone as much as I already do. But if someone like me is a little bit reluctant, I think there's an idea that when we talk about, you know, banking and the death of cash and contactless and even the internet usage, that it's all, you know, vulnerable people, the unbanked and all that. But I think there's a huge swathe of society that, I don't know, is it they just can't be bothered? They haven't, I mean, maybe it's just I haven't had a persuasive argument yet. I haven't got used to the technology. Maybe if I start, I won't go back. That's most likely. So it's the, how do you get over the friction of getting people started to go to digital? But in terms of whether there are people who are going to be left behind, the reality is there's always people who are going to adopt things a lot slower. But yes. I think that the argument that we've had in the past about think about the elderly, think about the vulnerable, those sorts of things, and I combine going online as much as I combine digital payments and the like, is that argument doesn't really wash so much anymore as a result of coronavirus, because so much more of our interactions, and I use my dear mother as a great example. My goodness me, that woman would not have even heard what Zoom was. I mean, she probably thought it's something on your camera. And now she's already sending me Zoom invitations and all sorts of things for her friend group things. I don't know what she does, but anyway, I politely decline. But either way, I mean, she's for the woman that only ever went online to do Sainsbury's shopping, she's got an iPad and all sorts nowadays. So it's a bit like when they brought in contactless on buses. You kind of need that shift, and then a lot of people come with you. There will inevitably be people left behind, but it'll be a lot fewer. And I imagine there'll be a lot more government incentives and those sorts of things. And you know, big companies like Microsoft will do great work in trying to roll out, you know, digital. But the reality is that's the way we're going. And you know, to get the best deals online, you need to, you know, best deals full stop for anything, you need to go online. I think it's the way we're going. So yes, it's the onus is on people like us to bring those people who are left behind with us.
Yeah.
So I might have a few phone calls with my mother about how Zoom works, but that's my responsibility to help her.
I mean, I must say, getting my mum to use Zoom was probably one of my highlights. My business successes of lockdown, so I was pretty chuffed with myself on that as well. It just talking a little bit about, I suppose, working life and what work could look like in, you know, let's say 6 months, being relatively optimistic, maybe a year or so. In terms of going back to the office and sort of settling back into sort of maybe some of our old routines, do you see there's a date in mind for that? I know a lot of people are sort of punting for sort of mid next year into the summer, but I mean, do you subscribe to that, or do you think that it's all a conspiracy and it's not going to happen for ages and ages?
You're talking to the person that thought, okay, if I just extend my ticket out here a couple of weeks, the government will surely change their mind, and then everything I'm reading, I'm on air and doing whatever, going, I don't think that's going to happen so much anymore. So, look, I mean, it's anybody's guess. The government have obviously changed their message to say, get out to work. Again, another sort of mixed thing when you've got lockdowns in certain regions and yet you're told you can go to work, but you can't see your family or your partner. It's very strange. Again, that's not a criticism. That's just strange. When will we be back to work? It's impossible. It depends what work you do. There's some jobs where you have no option but to go back to the office. This idea that everybody can work from home, I heard a stat, and don't quote me because I'm not entirely sure, but something like only 7% of jobs you can actually do from home. I'm incredibly fortunate. I'm incredibly fortunate that, I mean, I was working in studios and in offices, but since lockdown, all of my work has now gone online, and I am incredibly fortunate. I work in an industry where everything I do can work online. And for me, I'm hoping that will stay, obviously, because it's much more convenient and I rather like. But not saying I'm going to live in Spain, by the way, in case they come after me and throw me out the country. But I just think that we've got this idea that everybody is going to work from home. And yes, there will certainly be changes and shifts. And if you've been successfully working from home, a lot of people, I think, wanted flexible hours in the past, and their bosses might have told them, no, you can't do it. It's going to be very difficult to argue now in terms of employment tribunals and all that. If you've successfully shown that you can work from home, you should really be for the opportunity to have flexible working. And I think until we can get some sort of management on this issue, and I'm not even entirely sure what that's going to look like, then, I mean, I'm not subscribing to the fact that until we get a cure, but I don't know what it's been like recently, but certainly before I went away, there was no one on the tubes. There's no one on the trains.
Yeah.
We've got to kind of instill some confidence. I'm very stuck here. So obviously health is a massive concern. It's huge, but also I'm a finance journalist and I understand to a degree the economics of it. And I've looked at the impact of things like the 2008 financial crisis. We have this binary attitude that it is money versus health. It's not. Money is health. Economics is health. We've already seen since the start of lockdown the increase in suicide, domestic abuse. We also know that poverty, a poorer retirement will lead to shorter lifespans. This is, people who have not been able to go get cancer treatment during that lockdown time. What impact will this have on them? We need to get people out. We need to get the economy moving. And with all the predictions that we're going to have unemployment figures up to 10 to 13% by Christmas, we need to get confidence. And I'm not sure how we can do that, but I know that it needs to come. We need to get people back to work, whether that's at their homes being productive or in the office. But that's a tricky situation for the government to try and manage. Keep people safe, but get confidence in the economy going.
Yeah, managing that delicate balance between reopening the economy, but then also keeping. I mean, that's basically that's the number one mantra for the government right now. Very, very difficult. Just a quick question from your perspective: if people were looking for avenues, looking for advice online, looking for repositories of information that they can go to sort of help with their financial understanding, or where they should put their money if they are managing to save even a little bit during lockdown, or if not, if they're actually spending more or they've got financial pressures, where do you normally look at? And obviously, aside from obviously what you write, where do you look at for like repository of information and whatever else?
For all the information about what you should be doing right now in terms of your personal finances, I'm definitely going to recommend my own site that I work on, and that's Times Money Mentor. And I tell you for why. I mean, there's lots of reasons, but one, we have sections where you can find out more information about how to buy a house, right? So just guides, how to invest. We also look at the best kind of I suppose the best platforms you can use. All independently done, but also you can ask us questions. It's called Times Money Mentor for a reason. So I spend a lot of my time writing articles, especially about what's happening at the moment, the relevant information you need to know, as well as just general personal finance and consumer information. But also I get questions all the time from readers, and we do answer them. So if you really do have any queries, particularly around government schemes at the moment, we get a lot of that about furlough. Please do write. It's timesmoneymentor.co.uk. But I also, I'm podcast for This Is Money, so go there as well. That's the Daily Mail's money section online. There's also loads. If you are struggling with money, or you're really concerned about your finances, and there will be people who are very concerned, which is going back to the start of what I said, this will be a very different situation for different people, what lockdown looks like and what we will be like going out. If you are worried, if you've been made redundant, please do call someone like Citizens Advice for free, helpful advice. There are so many places that you can turn to. Turn to us is a great one as well if you're really struggling, but don't bury your head in the sand, for goodness sake. Get as much information and help as you can. It's not shameful to be worried about money. It is our biggest concern. It is the thing that keeps us awake at night when we're worried about it. I know, I'm speaking from personal experience, when my back went and I was a sports journalist, I was staring down the barrel of potentially never working again. I couldn't walk physically for about 5 months properly. I still have problems now. So I know what it's like to get in debt. So please, don't bury your head in the sand. There's plenty of help and information out there.
Absolutely. No, good words, poignant words. One more question, because we're coming to the top of the hour, but I had to ask one on football. Arsenal have announced 55 redundancies, or they're starting a furlough process yesterday. How does that sit with you? I'm a fan. Yeah. It hasn't sat wonderfully well with me, but how does that feel when you've got players on multi-million-pound contracts getting new, potentially getting new contracts, making signings. Yet you're making 55 people redundant from things like operational staff, scouting staff, etc.
Okay, I have two views about this. One, in terms of the redundancy processes that we were seeing at the start. I think because we had problems with Liverpool and with Spurs, furloughing staff, not furloughing staff, whatever, I think a lot of companies took that on and saw it as a bad PR exercise. And actually, a lot of people, especially freelancers on PAYE, didn't get any money at all because companies didn't want to be seen to be taking government money. And I think that was a negative PR effect. If the help is there for them and it is a sensible business decision to make, then do it. Redundancies don't sit well with me, obviously, and I won't specifically talk about necessarily Arsenal's decision. I'm not saying that because I'm an Arsenal fan at all, but it's like the decisions they make are the decisions that they make as a business. So broadly speaking, as can make these tough decisions, I agree with you. Sport is a different business. It's a different business. It's not a proper business as such. It goes to our hearts, and so this is quite personal. And yes, the money is huge, but this is such a black swan moment that we've just had the Championship playoff finals, which is worth what they reported 130 to 160 million, which in and of itself, in a normal time, is huge. But in a time of coronavirus, when there were predictions at the start that potentially 40, 50 clubs could go under, this is even bigger. And this is not because they're badly run. It is because, like I said, this is a hugely black swan moment. However, saying that, sport really needs, football especially, really needs to take a really long, hard look at the way it's doing business. A huge look. When most of your revenue comes from broadcasting rights, ever increasing fight for eyeballs cannot continue. If you can't get fans back to the stadium, you can't get the revenue. I worry about clubs, but I agree with you. Decisions like that in terms of redundancies don't sit well, but I don't think the model that we've had in the past with players getting loads of money and managers getting loads of money can possibly continue. If football doesn't learn from this episode, I have no hope for it.
Yeah, fair. Cool. Thank you so much, Jordan. That was awesome. I could ask you questions all day, but I've got to wrap it. It's at 9. And thanks for everyone.
I'm going to the beach as well, so you know.
Of course you are, and why not? Listen, I would do the same if I was where you were. Absolutely. Where can people find out? I mean, we've talked about obviously this is money and other things, but where the money mentor scheme. But where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at Georgie Frost, Instagram at Georgie, or at Times Money Mentor. Please do get in contact, and I will extend what I said about Times Money. If you have any questions, you can. My Twitter account messages are open, so do free to message me, and LinkedIn, of course.
Awesome. Thank you so much, and thanks very much for coming on. Tomorrow, just for everybody, Silent Taylor will be back, and he'll be joined by Timothy Harkness, who's the author of 10 Rules for Talking. So that should be a good one. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks for joining.